My name is Liam. For most people, the world is built on words, on relationships. For me, it was always built on structure, on stress loads, on balanced tension, on the integrity of a joint. I was a furniture restorer by trade, but at my core, I was an inventor, a man who needed things to be fundamentally sound. And then there was Clara. She was my best friend, my business partner, the person I trusted more than anyone else in the world. She was the polish, the presentation, the marketing genius. I was the engine. I was the design. We were supposed to be unstoppable. For 2 years, we poured everything, every late night, every penny, into our magnum opus. We called it the Aether Shelf. It wasn't just wood and metal. It was a revolutionary patent-pending modular shelving unit. It could hold massive weight while looking impossibly light, like it was floating. It was elegant. It was robust. It was our golden ticket. I handled the engineering. I handled the load calculations, the stress tests, the tedious work of the patent filings. I ensured that every single piece of that shelf was structurally, irrevocably sound. Clara, she handled the pitch. She sold the dream, and she was brilliant at it. The shift, the first real fracture in the foundation, started when Clara began taking meetings without me. Big meetings. Meetings with Ascend Retail, a national chain specializing in high-end, mass-market furnishings. She told me they needed her polished corporate talk, not my gritty, hands-on design language. I didn't like it, but I trusted her. That, I think, was my greatest engineering flaw, a failure of critical human judgment. The betrayal wasn't a sudden explosion. It wasn't a slammed door. It was a cold, surgical amputation. One Tuesday, I arrived at our shared studio. The locks had been changed. A legally sterile email was waiting for me. Just a paragraph. Clara has decided to dissolve the partnership and pursue the Ascend Retail contract independently. Your designs are deemed work for hire, and compensation will follow. The entire Aether Shelf, my sketches, my stress tests, my patent filing, it was gone. She had stripped me of my intellectual property, my livelihood, and my trust. The reason was brutally simple. Greed. She saw a billion-dollar distribution network, and she decided she didn't need to split it with the gritty, hands-on guy. The pain, at first, was absolute. The sense of violation was physical, but the anger that followed, it was cold, analytical. I couldn't sue immediately. Her lawyers had made sure the paperwork was a swamp. But as an engineer, I knew her weakness. I knew where her ambition would override her expertise: structural integrity. I couldn't beat her in a court of public opinion, but I realized I could crush her in a court of physics. My lawyer was an old forensic IP expert named Mr. Davies. He'd seen every kind of intellectual theft. He looked at my case, then looked at me, and gave me the final directive. Liam, your current case is a mess, but if there's a critical flaw in the product, a consumer safety risk, we don't sue the designer, who is protected by layers of contracts. We sue the entire national retailer for selling a dangerous, liable product. He said very clearly, we don't go in early. We wait. We wait until the shelf is everywhere, until every store is stocked, until her career is leveraged to the absolute maximum. My new mission began then, the long game of revenge. I had to wait a year for the perfect opportunity. I would make her life collapse. Not through emotion, not through anger, but through catastrophic structural failure. The next year was a silent hell. I watched Clara's life explode. Magazine covers, television spots, the Aether Shelf, which she had rebranded as the Zenith, became the must-have modular item in North America. She was riding a tsunami of my stolen success. Meanwhile, I was living in a cheap, windowless office poring over her public-facing design specs. I had one purpose: to find the mistake, to find the compromise. My engineer, a quiet genius named Marcus, helped me search. We knew Clara was smart, but we also knew she was greedy. The authentic, patent-pending modular bracket was expensive. In order to hit Ascend Retail's massive mass-production cost targets, the kind of cost-cutting that makes a multi-billion-dollar distribution model possible, she had to compromise a component. It was the only way to get her margins up. It took us 6 months, but we found it. She had replaced the specialized reinforced steel tension bolt, the element that held the entire system secure under max load, the component I had stressed for days, with a standard aluminum alloy bolt. It looked identical. A customer wouldn't know the difference, but the aluminum alloy bolt could only handle 60% of the required weight. It wouldn't break immediately on a light load, but under maximum customer load, with books, tools, heavy kitchen items, it was a delayed, catastrophic failure. It was a billion-dollar ticking bomb. And Clara, in her greed, had engineered it herself. Marcus estimated that once customers loaded those shelves, the failure rate would spike after about 6 months of steady use. The shelves would simply give way, sending expensive electronics, glass, and priceless family objects crashing down. Davies confirmed the strategy. We didn't need to prove theft. That was a messy IP battle. We needed to prove a consumer safety violation. That meant a stop sale and recall injunction. This was the nuclear option. If we filed too early, Ascend Retail would simply recall the product quietly, blame a third-party manufacturer, and Clara would survive. We had to wait for peak saturation, peak exposure, peak leverage. The perfect peak came on the last weekend of November, Black Friday. Ascend Retail would flood their stores and online marketplaces with the Zenith shelf. They would tie up their entire quarter's capital, their reputation, everything they stood for, in a product designed with my specifications, but manufactured with her greed. I gave the word to Davies. Initiate Operation Integrity Check. File the injunction at midnight. Black Friday. 1 a.m. I was sitting in Davies' empty office looking over the city. It was silent, but I could feel the electricity of a massive retail event about to explode. At 1:05 a.m., the first news alert hit the wires. Ascend Retail faces emergency stop sale injunction over catastrophic safety flaw in Zenith shelf. The injunction hit every single Ascend distribution center, every warehouse, and every digital checkout system simultaneously. The lawsuit wasn't just a nuisance, it claimed billions in liability and immediate irreparable damage to the retailer's reputation. Ascend Retail didn't hesitate. They weren't going to fight a safety claim on the busiest retail day of the year. The evidence, the side-by-side comparison of the reinforced steel and the cheap aluminum alloy, was undeniable. They filed an immediate, aggressive countersuit, not against me, the designer they thought they'd already compensated. They sued Clara's design firm.
They sued her for supplying a structurally unsound, fraudulent, and dangerous product. Clara, who was undoubtedly expecting Black Friday bonuses, woke up to an emergency call that ended her entire career. Ascend Retail immediately. They seized all her firm's assets. They blacklisted her from all future contracts globally. And they launched a PR campaign framing her as the singular rogue designer who tried to sell a dangerous, cheap product for maximum profit. She called me. Finally. The perfect corporate calm was gone. Just a raw, screaming mess.
How did you know about the component? You ruined me. I'm being sued for everything I ever earned. I let her scream. When she finally ran out of breath, I delivered the final, surgical truth. Clara, you didn't just ruin me. You introduced a critical load-bearing flaw into your own life when you chose greed over integrity. You broke the structure, I said. A good engineer doesn't patch over failure. They document it, condemn the structure, and ensure it never harms anyone else. I didn't sue you for theft. I forced the global marketplace to condemn a dangerous product you designed. You ruined yourself with a cheap aluminum bolt. The Aether Shelf was mine again, returned to me by Ascend Retail as part of their settlement with Davies. Clara's career was over. Her reputation vaporized. The intellectual property was back where it belonged. I took the original design, fixed the faulty component, and relaunched the Aether Shelf on my own. It didn't make me a billionaire, but it made me something better. Vindicated, independent, and structurally sound. If you believe in standing for your own integrity and in playing the long game of justice against those who betray you, subscribe. This has been the art of the silent auction.